Welcome to the Brass and Woodwind Shop. This is the 5th video in the Herald Trumpet Restoration series, and today I'm going to try to straighten out this bell, or at least get it part of the way done. In the comments, a lot of you have mentioned that you can't wait for me to start working on the bell section, and I have spent 4 weeks on this, so let's get started with the bell. When you have serious dents, you need to know exactly what you're working with, and you need to develop a strategy of how you're going to fix it. And on this one, the metal is broken all the way through on this side. If I turn it around, you can see that the metal is broken most of the way through on this side, and there's not much holding it together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a jeweler's saw and cut the rest of it. There's not that much left to cut, but I'm going to cut the bell and turn it into 2 pieces. The reason I'm going to cut it is because then I can work with the mandrels from both directions, from here, and also from the bell end and the end of this. So that gives me a lot more options for getting these dents out. Normally I do not cut tubing and bells in half, but in this case I kind of need to. There's also a pretty significant dent right there. I think what originally happened is the bell got bent the other way, and this brace right here to hold the flag on, it got bent and it pushed that in there. That looks bad, but that probably will be fairly easy to fix. On the other side, this is flattened, and also there's a dent there. That's because when this got pushed into this, it went all the way through and also affected the other side of the bell. And again, this dent will probably be easy to get out. Where this has been cracked, there is jagged tubing, so I'm probably going to have to file that down and buff it out a little bit so that it's not quite as jagged. I'm going to unsolder the 2 flag hooks, and also there are 2 strips of metal right here, and that provides strength for the very thin part of the bell, and obviously it didn't provide strength here, and that's where the bell bent. The reason I'm going to take all these parts off is because the bell is tapered, and after I'm done getting the dents out, I'm going to put on a collar that's going to hold these 2 parts back together. Because it's tapered, I'm not going to be able to slide it on this way, which would be a lot easier. I'm going to start by removing these 4 parts. This is quite a sad sight to see a noble Herald Trumpet bell in this condition, but I am going to fix it. Taking these parts off should go very quickly. I'll just heat that up to temperature. There, that one came off. And I'll take the other ring off. I'll do that first, and then I'll take off the other braces. I'm not sure what those pieces are even called. They're not exactly braces. Now I'm going to take these off, and I want to keep these straight. I don't want to just heat up part of it like right there and then peel it up because that will bend it. I want to keep these straight because it's going to be a lot easier when I have to put this back together. But for me to get it straight, I have to heat up the whole thing to temperature at the same time. Let's see how we're doing here. I think it's probably getting close. Usually you can tell because you see little beads of solder starting to come out from underneath the part. Let's see, is that ready to come off? Not quite yet. I'm going to turn the heat up a little bit. Okay, there. I just saw a little bit of solder come out, so it's probably close. Almost. There we go. Got that. Now the other one. The other one's probably going to be quick because it's probably pretty close to temperature already. Yes, it is. There we go. Now I need to clean up these solder joints, but I've shown you so much solder cleaning in the last few restoration videos. I'm just going to do that, and I will not get a video of it. Now I'm going to cut the bell. I probably only need to cut it about 1 centimeter or about 1/2 inch or so. So I'm going to cut it right along that line. I'm using a jeweler's saw blade, and the jeweler's saw blade makes a very thin cut, and it does the least damage possible. Let's see, okay, it's going through. I wanted to make sure I don't cut the other side or cut more than I need to. I'm just trying to take the bell off so that I can work with it easier, and also so I can slide that collar on there. I'm not sure if I'm going to need to anneal this metal or not. It's probably pretty soft metal. I will, if it starts hardening when I work on it, I'll need to anneal it or soften it. How you anneal metal is you heat it up to approximately between 800 and 1200 degrees Fahrenheit. And I'm not sure what that is Celsius. What it does is it softens the metal so that you can keep working on it. I'm not sure if I'm going to need to do it. If you remember the old cornet restoration that I did in the last series of videos, I did a lot of annealing on that one. But this one may or may not take annealing. Okay, let's finish this up. It's almost done, almost all the way through. And again, I'm trying to be very careful doing this, not to do more damage. This instrument has suffered enough. Come apart here. Let's see what we're working with. Okay, I think I'm just going to bend this off. It's ready to break. There we go. There, now the bell is in two pieces. Here's what I'm working with. This end is really closed up, and it's hard to get mandrels in there when it is so closed up. So I'm going to have to open it up slowly and probably use something flat like that to start getting it opened up. And then I have some small mandrels here. And I'm going to start with the really small ones and open it up a little bit, and then a little more and a little more. You don't want to just put a mandrel in the bell and shove it through there, because that can cause a lot more problems and it does not open up well. It just causes kinks in here, and it's already bad enough. It does not need to get worse. So I'm going to open that up slowly. And same thing with this, except on this end we also have a curve on it. So I'm going to try to straighten out that curved piece of metal, and then I'll probably also use this to get it open. I've never used this tool for this before. This tool is actually made for leveling woodwind pads, but I'm going to use it for straightening out a curved part on a Herald Trumpet bell. And it's very possible this has never ever been used for that in the history of the world. I'm going to start the process of opening this up, and I need to work slowly, because if you go too quickly at dents, you cause more damage. So I'm just going to go in a little bit at a time, and I may need to figure out another tool. They don't really make tools for this because it's pretty rare for something like this to happen. So you just have to improvise and use what you have. And I mentioned this last video too, but in case you didn't watch that, if you're wondering why I have all these cuts on my hands, it is not from band instrument repair. It is from working on cabinets. I've been working on kitchen cabinets the last couple months, and I have, I think about like 6 cuts on my hand from that, but none of those are from band instrument repair. I have gone about as far as I can with this tool, which is not that far, and I thought of something else I could use to help out. I have a burnisher with a little bit different shape, and I'm going to use that to get in there and open that up a little bit more. I can see it's opening, but I'm also getting a few more dents in there. I'm trying to avoid that, but this is quite a difficult dent to do. I thought it was going to be a little easier than this when I first started, but it's proving to be rather difficult. I just need to keep opening it up a little bit more without causing damage, or at least as little damage as possible. Once it opens up, then I can use some mandrels. That will make life a lot easier. If you look through the bell into the light, you can see that it is opening up a little bit more than it was. I have another burnisher that is straight, and that's a little bit larger at the end. So I'm going to put that through there now. I'm trying to get under this dent because that's what's keeping it from expanding. And I can get next to the dent and push up next to it, but I need that dent to come up a little bit. And after I do that, I should be able to have more room to work with. So, there it came out a little bit. I need it to come out a little bit more. And now I'll try the mandrel again. Nope, not quite. It's not quite ready to go through there yet. I'll try it again. And this job, it just goes back and forth. You just do what you need to do to get the dent out. And you don't take one dent out all the way when you're doing this, because this metal, it's a series of several dents. And if like I were to take this dent out, and that would leave everything else messed up, and it'd be messed up worse. So you need to take a dent out a little bit of the way, then work on another dent, take that dent out a little bit. And then when there are some high spots like this, you have to tap those down. And then you take another dent out, you tap down high spots. You just do what you need to do. You just do what you need to do to make it work. Sometimes it may not be a perfectly normal thing or a repair that you do every day, but you just do what you need to do. Okay, I'll show you up to the light what it looks like again, and it is getting better. You can see in farther now than you could before. And I will continue to work. Let's see if this will go in yet. Getting closer. The burnisher's opened up the tubing far enough so that this mandrel, the smallest one, will go past this point just a little bit. So I'm done with the burnishers for now. I may use it again to clean this up a little bit after I'm done getting the dents out, but for now they are done. This mandrel is not long enough to put it in the vise and then go in through the bell, which would be the best way to do it. So I'm just going to have to go in through this way. I'm going to go to my vise and put the mandrel in the vise. I have the mandrel in the vise ready to go. Since this metal at the end is kind of pointing up, if I were to put this in here and shove the bell on, what would happen is it would make a huge dent right down here, and it would be hard to fix. So what I need to do is put it in as far as it can go without resistance, and I'm going to push down a little bit on there, and then that is going to let it through a little farther each time. And right now I'm just at one side of the dent. On the other side it's not opened up far enough. I'd rather have it in the middle, but right now it's not going in the middle. So I'm going to open this up just a little farther. And then I am going to attempt to get this mandrel right in the middle. And if I can do that, then it will start to push this dent out, which is keeping the larger mandrels from going in. And I also need to be careful of this end, because I can do damage on this end if I'm not careful while working on this side. I also need to be careful because these edges they're not super sharp, but they are a little bit sharp, so I need to be careful too of that while I'm getting this dent out. So I'm going to attempt, with this hand I'm trying to push the metal this way so that it can open up right there. It is opening up a little, but not enough yet. I wonder if I can get the next size up mandrel in there yet. I don't know, it's going to be close. I'll check. Okay, here's the next mandrel. Nope, not yet. So I'll put that one off to the side, and I'll use this one until the other one will fit. I didn't know how hard this metal was going to be. It's pretty hard though. The metal can be different hardnesses, even like right next to each other. You can have one hard spot, right next to it is a soft spot, and this seems to be fairly hard. But when it got bent and dented, that did harden it up a little bit more. When metal gets worked, it gets harder, at least brass. Not all metals work the same way. But brass, when it gets worked, it gets harder. And then once it gets harder, if you work it too much more, it can start to crack. And hardening does not necessarily make it stronger. It just makes it harder to bend. Right here along this crease, there are some little, they're not exactly cracks because they don't go all the way through, but the metal is getting worked a little too much there. So I may need to anneal that. I'm not sure. Like I say, I'm going to try to avoid annealing if possible, but I might need to. I'm pushing the bell in a little farther. And again, I'm trying not to push it in too far because that will make a crease, a big crease right over here on the other side. I'll show you in the light how it looks again. So there it is. You can see that the opening keeps getting bigger. Now the bell goes in this far without offering resistance. So I'm going to keep working it, trying to get it in a little bit farther, because once it gets in much farther, I should be able to move up to the next mandrel. And I'm checking this side. No damage on this side yet, so that's good. Okay. Now it should fit in. Yes, it does. So I'm going to switch mandrels now. This mandrel slides in just past the dent. Not much past the dent, but enough past that I can work with it. And I'm still trying to get a mandrel underneath that dent, but it's been difficult, so I'll just keep trying. Here's what I'm working with now, and I think it's time to take some of this metal at the end. It's bent over, and I'm going to straighten that out a little bit. Now I'm going to tap down some of the metal at the end so it's not so sharp. I'm going to use a canvas mallet to do that. And I'm not going to tap it down all the way now. Because the mandrel is so small, it's going to do damage if I try to do it all the way. So I'm just going to do it a little bit now. Then as I move the size of the mandrel up, I'm going to tap it down a little farther. But like I say, you do a little bit at a time. You get one dent out a little bit of the way, move on to the next dent, then keep doing that until the dents are out all the way. There's a sharp dent right there, and I'm going to start to get that out with a round nose pliers. And I'm going to put that in there and carefully squeeze that. I'm making sure I'm not pushing into the metal at all where it's not supposed to be pushed into. I'm just rounding out this here. You can tell it's better than it was. And I'm going to round that out a little more. This pliers is an interesting pliers. It's rounded on one end on the inside, and then the other end is flat. What you can do with that is take the rounded end and put it inside the tubing. You can use the pliers to get leverage on stuff without damaging it. Well, that is, you don't damage it if you're careful. You need to make sure that the diameter of the rounded part of the pliers is larger than the diameter of what you're working on. Because if you start to get into a smaller diameter, then it's going to start to destroy it. So on the larger stuff, I can use this, and it will flatten out some of this metal without doing damage. And it just makes it a little better than it was before. I cannot work on the pointed parts of the tubing with this pliers, but it does help in other areas. And I don't even know where I got this pliers from. Probably from when I bought out a music store. I'm not sure if Furry's Tools has this pliers or not. I'll have to check it out, and if they do, I will leave the link to that in the description below. I got some of those dents out, and it keeps getting better just a little bit at a time, and it's more oval shaped now than it was before. Now I'm going to move on to another dent. Let's see, what's next? Probably continue. I'm going to try to continue to get underneath that dent and push that up. That's been a difficult dent. Now I'm going to go back to the mandrel in the vise and try to open that up farther. And I might also go back down to the smaller one until I can get underneath the smaller portion of the tubing. You can see that it kind of looks like a keyhole now. One part is opened up to let the mandrel through, and the other part is not. So I want to get the whole thing opened up so that I can get a mandrel through the whole part of it, not just one side. I decided to go back to the small mandrel. I'm going to go just beyond the dent and try to push this through sideways like that to open up this part. This repair is also difficult because there's not very much leverage. If I could put my hand farther over, then I could have more leverage when I push down. But like this, there's almost no leverage. But I'm going to do what I can. I'm moving it back and forth just a little bit so that it can open that up. I'm also still being careful not to get dents on this side. The one side just does not want to seem to open up. So what I'm going to do is put it on there like that, and then I'm going to tap it with a mallet. Hopefully that will push the bell down onto the mandrel a little farther and just get that opened up just a little bit more. I'm not sure if that did anything or not. Can't really tell. I may need a heavier hammer to do this. I got a rawhide mallet. That has a little more mass to it. Let's see if that can work or not. Yeah, I got a little bit of a dent in there when I did that. Yeah, this is going to take a little more work than I thought. I think what I'm going to do now is go back up to the next size mandrel and open this up a little farther, and hopefully it will push this open. But you just keep going back and forth until the dent is out. I got the next size up mandrel back in the vise, and this is a part where it takes patience because it is fun getting dents out of instruments to a certain point. Oh yeah, I went a little too far there and I did push the metal out a bit. I'm going to have to fix that later. That's what I tried to avoid, but it happened. As I was saying, that this is the part where it gets a little tedious and you just wish the job was done, but it's not. And you just keep going and you do what you need to do to get the job done. I did open up the bell quite a bit farther, but there still are plenty of dents here. And I think I may be able to move to the next mandrel. But before I do that, I'm going to... I'll just go on a little farther. There we go. Okay. Now I'm going to switch over to the next size up mandrel. This mandrel is longer, so I can go through the bell this way now. Now I'm going to tap down some of the high spots with a mallet. As I'm doing that, I'm pulling the bell onto the larger part of the mandrel. As soon as I tap it and the diameter gets bigger, I'm pulling it onto the larger diameter of mandrel. Okay, now this is opening up. The only thing is I ran out of a mandrel to work with because the bell is up to the vise. So I will go up to the next size of mandrel. This is the next size mandrel, and I have about that much to work with before I run out of mandrel. I think it's time to finish cleaning up some of this metal right at the end. I'm going to do that with this mallet. I tapped on the bell for probably about another 20 minutes. I didn't make you watch all of that because that would be a little boring watching everything. Here it is, and it is fairly round. It's not quite straight, and the ends are very jagged. I'll have to take care of that later. I was hoping to get the bell all the way done this week, but obviously that's not going to happen. So next week I will do this part of the bell, and maybe I'll even get it back together. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Please subscribe for more band instrument repair videos.